Hello, hello, and welcome back to the fifth and final week of our Empowered Music Room sessions that we've had. Normally, I have some upbeat music going on before this, and try to get everybody on Friday afternoon. If this is when you're watching it live, or whenever you're watching it, you've probably had a week or whatever. I needed something to kind of calm me down a little bit today. I've been virtual for over a year, and I was, getting into the swing of things and all, and then it was just announced the last couple of days that we will be going back for the last few weeks of school in person hybrid. Oh my. So I'm trying to just stay grounded here as I start to think about all the new things. But the beauty of it is I continue to apply what I'm teaching here, everything I'm practicing. Uh, Again, I don't know if I had oh yeah, I did. Excuse me. I had a thing pop up and it said I was muted, but I really wasn't. Anyway, what we're here to, I was just going to mention that the things I'm talking to you about that are not just concepts that I think seem really cool. These are things I'm practicing in my own classroom with my own students. I did these kinds of things before we had a pandemic. I've done it during the pandemic, and I will continue in this hybrid situation and back to school, whatever that looks like later in the fall. I will continue to implement the structure of this empowered classroom because it has allowed me, in spite of all the chaos that's come in our way and the changes and all the stuff, I'm still staying grounded, and my kids are too. So that's why I've been sharing this with you. It's stuff that is really helpful and practical to me. As music teachers, I don't think that you'll take everything and do exactly what I do with it, but instead you will take what I do, probably recognize so much of what you already do, and maybe you just structure it a little differently or tweak some of the things you're already doing, and you're going to see huge results. But music teachers, we're so good at looking at samples of things, at templates, at chord changes, and then improvising. So that's what we can do here. A quick review, a reminder of what is this empowered music room that I get so excited about. It's one where I spend approximately 10%, but I for sure focused attention in my planning and execution of the classroom every day, something social to draw the students in. That in-person way, it's easy. We're making music together, that draws them in anyway. But in a virtual world, I've used you, me, and a cup of tea to get them drawn in so that they show up for the class for the social aspect. Because no outstanding lesson will matter if the students don't show up. So we got to draw them in. We talked about these already, I know. Focus, this is what we did last week, and we'll do in a minute. But I told you why I include this piece that's so important to tune our brains and our bodies so that we can be focused as teachers and as learners. That's the big key we did last week. I will implement that in this class before I get to the meat of our stuff today, which I'm talking about the content we teach. Now, all of you that are coming to this, I have hundreds of people that watch these webinars, and some teach elementary music, some teach general music, some teach high school band, some teach middle school orchestra. I mean, I have people that work with me all the time. So our content is different, but there's some structural things you can do with that content and in your planning. I'm going to teach you that today. That can make planning your content much easier, much less stressful, and much more powerful in the long run. So I'm going to teach you what most people do, and then I'm going to teach you how not to do that and how to get out of that mode and to make that easier for you. And then the other piece I've already taught about was actually the first one I taught you was the CODA. How do we get a wrap up? How do we assess what students have learned in our presence that day to help us plan our future lessons? We're going to talk about I already talked to you about that in the past. I'm going to show you again how that fits in here. But today I'm really going to dig into this. But before we do that, like I do every day in my classroom and every time I gather clients or do webinars or anything else, all of us have stuff going on that keeps us distracted and the like. So if you are in a place, not driving, not supervising other people, but if you're in a place where you can, let's take a few minutes to close our eyes, settle our bodies down, and take a few minutes to do that focus factor that I taught last week. Now that you understand, just like tuning our instruments, we want to tune ourselves. We want to let the other clutter go. We want to do that. So let's bring our bodies to stillness. And if it's safe for you to do so, close your eyes or soften your gaze so that any distractions out there are minimized for you. And just notice how you feel in this moment. Is your breath coming shallow or is it nice and deep? Can you sense your heart beating? That's your metronome. Is it fast or slow? And just over the next couple of minutes, notice if anything changes. Maybe as you exhale the next time, you notice how good it feels as you allow the muscles in your face and jaw and tongue to soften. And again, you might exhale and notice how good it feels as you allow your shoulders to melt away from your ears and your arms and your hands can become heavy. We often don't realize we're carrying tension until we intentionally let our muscles relax, and then we notice how much tension we've been carrying in our bodies. So on your next exhale, perhaps you notice how your back and sits bones, thighs and feet can anchor you into your chair. And all of the muscles in your whole body, perhaps for the first time today, can soften towards the earth and rest. And just notice how you feel. Is there any difference in the depth of your breath yet, or the ease? As I count from 1 to 10, see if you can slow the pace of your breathing to my numbers. And perhaps each inhale fills you with oxygen. You take what you need. And then as you exhale, you feel 10 times more relaxed than you do each time. 1, 2. Each time you practice this with me or with yourself or with other people, it becomes easier. 3, 4, 5. Maybe you notice you're feeling heavy. 6. If your tongue is returned to the roof of your mouth, what does it feel like if you release it again? 7, 8. Just notice if your jaw is clenched. 9. Perhaps your next exhale is just an open mouth sigh. And 10. And in the last just couple of moments, see if you notice any difference in the quality of your breath. No judgment, just an observation. Does your heart rate feel any different? And if nothing's changed, that's interesting. And if something has changed, what does that tell you? What would happen if you practice this regularly with you and your students before you dove into content? Can you make better decisions when you're more relaxed? Just take a moment and think about, while you're nice and relaxed, what your process for designing lessons has been like this year. Was it immediately when we went virtual last spring? Did you jump for the apps and all of those things and look for things to do? What did you do first? How did you design content for your students? Just think about that and how that felt as you were trying to do all of that in the moment. And maybe things have changed in the mode of how you're teaching. Maybe they haven't. I'm still virtual. But has your planning changed? Has it gotten easier? We're going to talk about some strategies today that you might want to think about differently and might help your planning so that your content planning becomes easier for you. You gain some more clarity on ways to do it, and it becomes more effortless to teach. So that's what we're going to do today. You're not going to want to be groggy during that. So I want to invite you to start wiggling fingers and toes, maybe stretching and yawning. You really want to get circulation going. We get stagnant. Stuff sits there. It doesn't feel good. We get unhealthy from that. So stretch and yawn. I'll count from 5 to 1. Let's reverse that relaxation process. And when I say 1, maybe you'll feel like floating those eyes open, and we'll pick up with the content. 5, 4, 3, take lots of big movements, maybe another yawn. 2, and 1. Okay. Oh, I needed that. I don't know, hope that helped you, and I hope that you feel a little bit better. All right, let's see if I can just get that other window open so that I can see. Awesome. All right, so what I want to talk to you about next is, what is planning effective content? I can tell you what it isn't. What do I see? This was pre-pandemic, then during the pandemic, I've seen this a lot, and I still see it with a lot of people. Maybe this is familiar. I know I was here a lot of the time. What most people do when planning their lessons, pick songs to play for a performance. Guilty. How often are we selecting our curriculum based on what concert season we're in or what performance we've got? Sometimes that's on it. That's what we do. So we design our content around the songs we need for a festival or whatever. No judgment. Okay. When we went to emergency learning, did we all find ourselves going, oh my goodness, what apps do I need? Let me go to Teachers Pay Teachers, or let me find other pre-created lessons that people have done. Let me search for activities. I'm going to design websites and fancy Bitmoji spaces. And I got to say, I'm insanely jealous of those of you who do. Um, I'm not saying there's not a place for them, by the way. I think that those serve a really big social piece for our kids. It gives them a place to look at that feels comfortable and all of that. But oftentimes we start our lesson planning with creating all the cool looking stuff. So this is how I'm talking about it in that space. And we get so bogged down in content creation that sometimes we lose sight of what is it we're trying to teach our students. Not the song, but what lessons, what musical skills, what are our big learning targets, if you will, right? We sometimes I want them to learn this song for this festival. That's really not how we want to plan our lessons, but it's what we often end up doing. And I want to just say, stop the madness, okay? I have found in my personal life and then when I work with people that when we do our lesson planning in certain ways, it is so much more helpful in the process of planning our lessons, regardless of if it's old school way, like before a pandemic. This also is extremely helpful during a pandemic, and it will hold up after a pandemic. This is how I plan my lessons I teach, whether it's with my students, whether it's with a webinar, whether it's with a series I'm doing with people, in-person workshops, clients I coach. I always ask myself, or I start everything with, by the end of this session, what do I want, or this unit, or this lesson, or whatever? What do I want the people to know, do, and feel as a result of what I'm doing? And what I'm going to do today is show you how I've applied this to my long term, because I have a long-term goals and then short-term goals. So I'm going to play this out for you so you can see how I've used this in my virtual setting and why I've done it. But that's the first thing. If we start with this before we even worry about this stuff on the left, this is important. Then we identify how we're going to know if we reach the goals. Okay, that's our assessment at the end. What assessment, what questions am I going to need to ask at the end so that I can truly see if I met my targets and if the students did. And then once you've done those, identified those two things, what you want your kids to know, do, and feel as a result of your lesson, and how you're going to check for understanding, then go back to this side, and it's so freaking easy to know. What do I pick? What do I do? It's like when you've created a grocery list and a menu, and then a grocery list, and then you go to the grocery store. Grocery shopping is so much easier. But when you just go to the grocery store, it's like this, right? It's like just randomly going in and grabbing stuff off the shelves and hoping it'll work together later. That's frustrating. But these things are all super helpful if you use them after you've already identified these first two things. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to use my personal example of what I've done with my students. I've got a year-long goal for my students, and I'm going to share that with you. And then I'm going to share with you what it looks like as I break it down into 6-week units each throughout this school year in our virtual, soon-to-be hybrid environment. My overall goal for my students this year, what do I want my students to know as a result of what I teach them this year? And I'm going to have a 6-week unit that repeats over and over and over. It's like repeating chord changes and changing the melody. Okay, my chord changes stay the same. Because what I'm really teaching them is how to set and achieve realistic and specific goals. I decided this was my overarching goal this year because if my students are virtual and I ask them to go practice, but I haven't taught them how to practice, like how to set a goal, how do they know they've achieved it, then their practice time could be wasted. And I'm not there monitoring it in the classroom, hearing what they're doing. So I needed to teach my students how to set goals, how to know what that looks like. I had to teach them very specific steps. So that became my lesson. I realized my goal for this year, what I want them to know is how to set and achieve realistic and specific goals. What do I want them to do? I want them to be able to break those goals down into manageable steps, identify the resources that they need to meet them, or to achieve them, and then take the steps necessary to meet those goals. And so during the course of the 6 weeks, each time we have a class, I ask the students what their goal is, the long-term goal, and what one step they're taking today. And we open our band journals. What one step do you take today to get you closer? What resources will that need? They put that in their Moffatgram to communicate with me so I know how they're doing. They have it in their journal. And we break these big goals down into small steps so that they only have to take a step at a time. We do this as music teachers, and they learn this process in our rooms because we will often have a goal for them and say, we're working on this music for a concert, and we know we're teaching them specific skills, but we say to the students, today we're going to work, or because we know need to play this piece by such and such a date, today we're going to work on measures 1 through 24. We're going to start at 80 beats per minute, and our goal by the end is to be 90% accurate at 100 beats per minute. I mean, we teach kids how to do this because we model it naturally in our in-person classes. But we have to teach students how to set their own goals, how to get those benchmarks so that even if we're scattered, even though I have students in 171 different locations every day for my classes, they have this process that is helping them practice better, be better musicians, even be better students, how to achieve any goals. So that's the second piece of the question I have to get real clear on, okay? When I'm clear on this and this and this final piece, how I want them to feel, then I know what to do. So I want my students to feel empowered to overcome obstacles and achieve their dreams because they have learned a process that they can use over and over and over again that will consistently get them great results regardless of the specific goals. So I want to teach them, um, uh, again, if I were to teach someone how to play rhythm changes, so the chord changes from the song "I Got Rhythm," um, let's take that and let's take those chord changes. I would teach the kids those changes. What does that mean? What does the process look like? And then teach them how to improvise over that. What do the chord structures look like? What are the, we could take that and every 6 weeks we could do new things with it. So we can take this template that I'm going to show you and they can take their goals and figure them out like this. So I identify this first, what I wanted my students to know, do, and feel as a result of being in my class this year. And then, so that was the first step I talked about. How am I going to know if they achieve their goals? All right, when we're in person, let's be honest, music teachers, when we are in person teaching our classes, right, we don't really need playing tests for our students because you know what? We know in real time, using our eyes and our ears, do our students know what they're doing or not? We can tell from their posture if they're not even playing or if they're actively engaged, we can hear what they're doing. Assessing them in real time if we're doing that kind of stuff is super easy. It's a little harder perhaps in other situations. So I created, as I've shared with you, my Moffatgram, which is my daily check-in with kids. Before it became super effective, I had to teach the students how to use a Moffatgram. I spent time teaching why a Moffatgram is important, what it shows me, what information it gives me. I set them all up with that so that I would have that tool to help me get feedback to students on how they were doing with breaking their goals down so that they could learn this process. Let me show you. Let me show you what this looks like in our band every 6 weeks. So this most recent one we completed on March 1st. So this is, I just am going to show you now what I went and I literally copied and pasted out of my Canvas final reflection I gave them for the 6 weeks that we did in here. So on January 21st, sorry, January 29th and March 1st, I had them journal the same things in their journals. Here's the funny part. On January 29th, I said, open your band journals, which is a whole process. I taught them where to keep band journals, how to use them every day, blah, blah, blah. But so they're in the habit of doing this every day. On January 29th, I said, would you please write the date, March 21st? And I said, I want you to pick your goal. Which, again, they know the process. I want you to tell me this month in band, and perhaps you want to learn to play 6 new chords on the guitar. So write it as if you've already accomplished it. So they would write, this month in band, I learned to play 6 new chords. Now they haven't actually done it yet, but they're writing it as if they have. That's an important brain hack. Speaking in that affirmative as if it's done is helpful. I asked them to identify, anticipating after they complete their 6-week unit, the main reason they're especially proud of the accomplishment because, so I say to them, why do you want to learn this? Why do you want this skill? Why do you want to accomplish this? And they have to identify the why behind it. And then I say, now that you've done this, how do you feel? So I say to them, imagine you've written a song and you put a backing track to it. We play it for the class. How do you imagine people would react if they heard your stuff? How would that feel? And I asked them to write about that. And then I asked them to identify, since they got to select a project they're interested in, how did that, what were they able to do? And kids always identify things like, when I didn't feel like doing my work, I remembered, hey, I got to pick this. It's something I want to do, not I have to do, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, what was the main reason you're successful in meeting your goal? And they anticipate the main reason was, and kids will write something like, um, I put in my calendar what time I was going to work on certain parts of it. Or I asked my mom to check in with me every day. Or I put a reminder on my phone to get something done each week, or whatever. I asked them to anticipate what they would say in 6 weeks at the end, what they wanted for that. Then they literally, they do this in January or the beginning of each unit. When they struggle during it, this becomes really helpful. If somebody says, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or I've lost my incentive, I say, let's go pull up what you said when you started this. You said that uh, you were successful in meeting your goal because you had your mom help you, or you did such and such. Would that be helpful now? And so they kind of can pre-identify obstacles. That's really helpful, because when they pre-identify the obstacles before they get there, then they've already thought through some tools. So anyway, they do that then. And then I have them on the actual date, I have them rewrite them. I say, go back or open your journal. And today, will you answer these questions? And then I say to the kids, now go back and look what you wrote originally in anticipation and you predicted. And then can you answer these two prompts? So after they compare what they wrote on January 29th that they thought they would think and what they actually did accomplish on March 1st, I ask them, what are they most proud of learning through this process? And what they believe the grade that most identifies or represents their growth. Okay, and then I ask them to list 3 reasons, and we've gone through all of this, so they have background. And then I just simply remind them to submit it and all, and then I give them a Moffatgram, because I use my Moffatgrams all the time. Uh, and that Moffatgram takes them to I don't think you'll be able to see it if I do it here, but it goes to an assessment that just simply asks them if they've gone, how this process was for them. Did they accomplish their goals? And it just asks a few key questions, and through a Moffatgram, which is a Google form that I immediately capture, so that I can see how successful were the students. Did they set goals that they reached or not? Let me tell you, every 6 weeks when I do this, I am seeing that the students are 85% of the time and above, they are, out of a scale of 1 to 5, they are 4s and 5s on achieving their 6-week goals. And I've taught them this process. Why is this important? Because when we return to the classroom, we want our musicians to be prepared. So now I can say to my students, if you're getting ready to come back to the classroom, you're going to need to get your skills, your chops back up. What are the things you're going to need to do? And we can set the goals, and then we can break it down so they can effectively practice. When we get in the classroom, it'll be so much easier to run rehearsals, because they're used to working together towards goals and doing that. So I really distilled down this year what skill I wanted my kids to have that would help them the most as musicians, help us as an ensemble, because this whole process is so important. So that's essentially what I wanted to share with you, because if I were to share just content and all the little lessons I've done in between, because I've done lots of other lessons in between and group activities in between my 6-week things, I've got lots of lessons. And if you want some specific, like, what could I do with a sub content lesson, if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, you can always email me some of what you want your kids to know, do, and feel with something. And if I've got a quick lesson I can send to you, then I am happy to do that, because that's easy for me to say, oh, I've got an idea, if I know what you want your kids to know, do, and feel. But the trick is, you have to know what you want your kids to know, do, and feel in order to design or ask for the right kind of content. So that's where we are. I want to thank you so much for showing up and being here week after week, and for doing this with me. I'm going to pop in the chat my Moffatgram follow-up here. It's just a quick little survey asking whether you're live or you're watching the replay. You should be able to go in the chat function either way. My Moffatgram is asking what has been helpful for you and how this has been for you, so that I know in the future, if I offer this again, should I tweak anything? Are people even interested in this? So you can help me be a more effective teacher next time through this process, my coda, if you will, at the ending, asking for your feedback so that I can assess what I should do differently next time. And as always, I want to put it out there that if you enjoy this kind of thing and this kind of support is helpful for you, I do love offering and working with my Music Ed Masterclass, a group of teachers. We gather weekly. I coach them. We share ideas. I've been doing this before the pandemic and during the pandemic. So I have had an inside view of classrooms across the world. And I love talking about this stuff. I'm concerned about the physical and mental and emotional toll this is taking on students and teachers. And I'm going to just be here to support teachers as much as I possibly can because I believe so much in the work you are doing and how it impacts students. Thank you for being here, for being a part of this. Please send me that Moffettgram, and if you have any questions, there's an opportunity in that Moffettgram to put them in there, and I can reach out to you. And again, the application on my website is there, and I will reach out if that's something that looks like we should connect. Thank you for the work you do as music educators. This has been one heck of a year. You guys are holding it together for so many kids, making such a big difference. God bless you.